Moved by Councillor Dirksen. Okay, moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Gunson. Council of the Town of Minto resumes into open council. Thanks, everybody's back. That's great. And just reporting out of closed, I just want to report one thing. We had a good discussion around the CAO and what great job he's been doing in the last year and a bit, certainly the last year through COVID. And Derek, I must say that the council is always very pleased with what you've been doing for us. And it's been a tough road to hoe with COVID but we've done a lot of neat things and went over some of those things that you've accomplished, and you've got great support from the council and myself. So I thought we'd just bring that to you, and if you want to say anything, you can.
Just on behalf of Mayor Bridge to council, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to work for Minto, and we have fabulous staff. And you know, without great staff, I don't get to accomplish my goals either. So really, we have great staff, and really they're fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And you can tell from our meeting today and see all the neat things that are happening. There's a lot of positives in this council meeting today. So it just keeps moving on. So thanks, everybody. Okay, moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Anderson, that the minutes of the Town of Minto November 16th, 2021 closed session meeting and November 16th, 2021 regular council meeting be approved. Anybody opposed? Carried. Additional items. Councillor Anderson. And I saw Deputy Mayor Turton. Okay. Anybody else has anything later, let me know. Okay, good. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Gunson, that the Town of Minto Council convenes in the committee of the whole. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, we're there. And now I just want to welcome our first delegation, and it's and who have we got on there? I have to look on my screen here. Oh, there's Jen Stevens, pleased to meet you, and welcome aboard. And I know you have a presentation, so we're looking forward to hearing that. And did you bring out anybody else with you, or are you on your own?
just myself. Thank you.
Oh, good for you. Good. Okay, go ahead. Has Jen got her slides up? There you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Bridge. I'll begin then. I understand I have 10 minutes, so I'll talk very quickly. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm going to speak to you about some of the programs and services supported by Municipal Levy at Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. And then I will provide some budgetary numbers proposed for 2022. Lastly, I will provide you with some provincial updates, which will impact not only all conservation authorities in the province, but also our watershed municipalities. Our story of conservation begins in the rural watersheds of Ontario, where deforestation for agricultural land uses led to erosion, allowing runoff and flooding, as well as drought. Conservation organizations came together to address environmental conditions at the time, and the result was the Conservation Authorities Act, passed in 1946, with the mandate to conserve, restore, and develop natural resources of the watershed. After the most famous hurricane in Canadian history, Hurricane Hazel, the Conservation Authorities Act was amended to include powers to control waters, to prevent floods or pollution. Next slide, please. The key to conservation authorities being able to do our work is the watershed focus, transcending municipal boundaries and potentially different opinions. This makes us a unique entity in Ontario. Good land management equals good water management, and one cannot happen without the other. Next slide, please. The first program I'll speak of is the Flood Forecasting and Warning Program. SVCA's overall flood management program encompasses both non-structural approaches designed to keep people away from water and structural approaches which are designed to keep water away from people. The flood forecasting and warning program is an important element of the flood management program. Its requirement is to relay routine information concerning watershed river conditions to select agencies and to municipalities. As well, it provides rapid advance warning and technical support to concerned officials and to citizens whose lives and properties may be endangered by floodwaters. Revenue sources for this department are budgeted to be from the general levy at 80%, as well as from a provincial grant at 20%. Next slide, please. Through environmental planning and regulations, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority protects the people from the environment and the environment from the people. The authority ensures that the natural environment and natural hazards are respected, protected, avoided, and/or accommodated through a regulation under the Conservation Authorities Act, where permits are reviewed and issued for development taking place in vulnerable areas within our watershed. General levy, as well as revenue from non-levy sources, will support this department in 2022. Next slide, please. The purpose of our water quality department is to establish baseline water quality data, to observe trends, and to assess the effectiveness of watershed programs. To do so, we conduct groundwater, surface water, and biomonitoring sampling to help characterize the status of the water resources in Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority's jurisdiction. This department is fully funded by Municipal Levy. Next slide, please. The structural approaches of the flood management program are about keeping people away from the water. These structures include dams used to control the flow of frazzle ice, dikes to restrict flows to the proper channels, and channel works to protect slopes from erosion. Existing flood and erosion control infrastructure is inspected annually to ensure their integrity in fulfilling one of their key mandates, the prevention of loss of life, property damage, and social disruption from flood and erosion processes. The Water Management Department is funded by general levy and by special levy to benefiting municipalities. Next slide, please. Environmental stewardship refers to efforts made to protect the environment and to identify and mitigate the potential environmental repercussions of an activity. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority's programs and services in stewardship extend to community support and partnerships such as tree planting, in addition to providing project funding support. For example, the authority has recently partnered with the Nuclear Waste Management Organization to create a water well improvement program intended to protect groundwater aquifers across the watershed. We also continue to maintain and improve outreach to the agricultural community. Next slide, please. The conservation education program is quite extensive at Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. We assist in the organization of regional events such as the forest and water festivals, carry out local outreach such as the Yellowfish Road program, and conduct our own educational programming. The authority assists watershed residents in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and commitment needed to make informed decisions. Funding in this program or in this department is approximately 65% from general levy and the balance from various program users and Bruce Power. The general levy required to fund this department is similar to that in 2021. Next slide, please. Our Forestry and Lands Department offers three main forestry related programs and services: tree planting, as well as tree marking and tendering programming, as well as the Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program for authority program properties and private landowners. We also maintain and improve and conduct improvement projects on authority forested properties in the amount of 8,000 hectares. The revenue source in this department is derived exclusively from the sale of forest products from authority-owned properties and from services provided to landowners, such as tree planting, tree sales, spraying, and forest management. Next slide, please. This particular group of this department is non-revenue parks and property management, and it will be the last department I speak of. The parks covered by this portion of the budget include Sulphur Spring, Allen Park, Stony Island, Bells Lake, Kinghurst, McBeath, and Varney, the majority of which are conservation areas that are open to the public. Annual revenue sources other than the general levy are from agreements with the Ontario Steelheaders Association for Denny's Dam Conservation Area, West Grey for the Durham Conservation Area Day Use Swimming Area, and a rental house at Sulphur Spring Conservation Area. We also bring in revenue generated from parking fees at 2 of our parks and water donations at Sulphur Spring Conservation Area. In 2022, we expect to receive additional parking revenue as we intend to establish parking fees at 2 additional locations. We are expected to have quite a bit of expenses at our conservation areas, including increases to our hazard tree budgets, significant repairs and maintenance to accommodate health and safety, especially to bridges and walking trails at all of our conservation areas. Next slide, please. You will have received in your package a summary of the budget that was circulated to all of our municipalities. We are expecting forecasting a budget of $3,435,625 in 2022. That is an increase of just over $300,000. $300,000, pardon me. And we are seeing an increase in each one of our departments. We are going to be drawing money from our reserves to help us minimize the impact on the municipal levy to each of the municipalities. But what this means for the town of Minto is that the 2022 municipal levy will be increased by $2,818 to a total of $49,959. Your own municipal levy is $56,000 for a 1% increase, and this is an equivalent to a 0.050% increase in your municipal levy. Next slide, please. I next wanted to point out some of the changes that we can see in the horizon, particularly related to the Conservation Authority Act. Next slide, please. The Phase 1 Conservation Authority Act regulations were released in October of this year. They are listed here. I won't read them out, but I will describe that the mandatory programs and services regulation, which is the first of the 3, outlines mandatory programs and services to be delivered by a conservation authority under specific categories, including natural hazards, conservation lands, source protection, provincial water quality and quantity monitoring, and core watershed-based resource management strategies. Category 1 projects, programs, and services are required to be delivered by every conservation authority and are eligible for general municipal levy. Anything not included as a mandatory program and service could be delivered as either a municipal category 2 or as an other category 3 program and service. Next slide, please. The second regulation that I will speak of today is the Transition Plan and Agreement Regulation, which requires that each conservation authority over the next 2 years provide certain deliverables that will help ensure that each of the mandatory programs and services are in place by January 1st, 2024. And for all Category 2 and Category 3 programs and services, agreements are in place with either municipalities or with other organizations for which funding is obtained. So for example, by December 31st of this year, each conservation authority is required to prepare a transition plan, which is essentially a 2-page document which outlines how each municipality will come to, or each conservation authority will come to prepare the documents required to be completed by January 1st, 2024. By February 28th, 2022, which is a key milestone, we're required to prepare an inventory of programs and services, which is essentially a list of all Category 1 mandatory, Category 2 municipal, and Category 3 other programs and services the authority is providing and intends to provide, including estimates of the total annual cost for delivery and sources of funding, and where agreements are necessary. Both the transition plan and the inventory of programs and services are going to be required to be submitted to every municipality within the watershed, as well as to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. To ensure that between February 28th, 2022 and January 1st, 2024, every conservation authority stays on track in achieving the timeline that's laid out in their transition plan, we are required to submit quarterly progress reports. So I will be working closely with your municipality in ensuring that that any programs and services that do not fall within a Category 1 mandatory program and service, the municipality is essentially given the opportunity to speak to and agree to, or not to agree to, certain programs and services that would fall under Category 2. And if the municipality is interested in a particular service or program that does not fall or does fall, pardon me, into a Category 2 program or service, then we would develop a memorandum of agreement between the municipality and the Conservation Authority. Next slide, please. I also wanted to briefly bring to your attention that Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority has recently rebranded with a new logo and are currently going through the last steps of our rebranding exercise. Next slide, please. We have also launched a brand new website, which has a tremendous help with respect to locating information. It's been organized much easier than our previous website, and we've been able to hear from quite a few landowners and residents in our watershed with respect to its organization. We're very pleased with the outcome, and we'd invite you to check it out and provide feedback to us if you have any. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today and would be pleased to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. And questions? Deputy Mayor Turton, I figured you might have a question.
Yeah, no, I don't have a question, Jennifer. I think you've done a great job on this presentation. I mean, you've outlined, I just happen to be a part of the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and so we've went through this numerous times, as you have, discussions at our board meetings. And I mean, we've had huge tasks in the past, but this next couple of years is going to be pretty big for us to either bundle or have single situations. So congratulations and thank you for the presentation. I have no questions. I have lots of questions, but I know the answers. So
All right, thanks, Mayor.
thanks.
Anybody else? It's great to have you here, Jen, and just to do the presentation. It's nice to have that face doing the presentation. And I know you're challenging. It's a challenging thing talking to Deputy Mayor Turton with Maitland and how the changes are with the province and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think we'll all come out of it in good shape. And conservation authorities are very important to us. We obviously, with the climate change and other things that it was so important with the flooding and all the other stuff that we deal with the conservation authorities. So pleased you are here today, and thank you for your presentation.
Well, thank you for providing me with the opportunity.
Thanks. Bye now.
Goodbye.
Do I need to make a motion to accept that, Annalee? No, that's just still delegation. No,
Just a delegation.
delegation. Okay. Moving on. Okay, now we have correspondence. Does anybody want to pull anything out of correspondence? Deputy Mayor Turton, Councillor Dirksen, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mary Bridge. I would like to pull item 10E, please.
Yep, I was hoping somebody would. Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Okay, let's speak to item 10E, the Harrison Historical Society Relief Fund request. I believe it's pretty straightforward. Anybody want to speak to it or make a motion? Except Councillor McKenzie.
I'll have to declare a conflict here, so if you're voting
sorry.
on it, if there's
Okay.
a vote on it, I'll have to declare, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Elliott.
I make a motion that we accept the request and give them the money they've asked for.
Okay,
I'll second it.
seconded by Deputy Mayor Turton. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, good. And you'll send that off, Annaleen, and good, thank you. I don't believe we have had any more requests at this point in time, have we, Annaleen?
No, we have had no further requests at this time.
Thank you. Okay, where are we here? Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Deputy Mayor Turton. The council receives correspondence as information. Anybody opposed? Carried. Good. I'll turn it over to Councillor Elliott to assume the chair. We've got committee reports now.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. I'll introduce Matt Luber's. Always got to find you on the Zoom place there, Matt. And glad to see you with your nice little beardy thing. I like that on you. Okay,
Yeah.
if you would give us a report, please.
I can do that. Thank you, Councillor Elliott. So we met a week ago as PRAC, and here are some of the highlights. Trying to go digital here, so I'll just pull them up. Alrighty, so yeah, we met in Clifford last week for the final time in 2021. Grace reported that weekend attendance at the Norgan's slow right now, but private rentals are picking up, and we're playing host to a live Christmas themed show next Wednesday, December 15th, and that's being organized by local musician Kara Smith. The show's sold out as tickets were offered at a reduced capacity, and other relevant restrictions for COVID will be in place that night. Operations at the arenas remain steady, with ice rentals in Harrison and Palmerston and non-ice programming in Clifford. Grassroots basketball wraps up tomorrow, but we're looking to offer it again in 2022. Shuffleboard, pickleball, and ball hockey will run right up until Christmas, and then they'll break until the new year. It's also great to have the Norwell boys and Norwell girls varsity teams back at the arena. So those programs are a go again. The grade 9 hockey program wrapped up last month, and that went well as well. Speaking of Norwell, visits to our youth hub right across the street, now known as the Grove Palmerston, have been very steady and very busy since September. Mel and the youth ambassadors on site are having a positive impact there. The Grove is also the new meeting place for the Minto Youth Action Council. And they've done some different events there, a Halloween costume swap in October, and they've got a Christmas event in the works here in December. And it's just great to see the youth being able to meet again and plan some of their own events. Lastly, you'll note in the minutes that Trevor Smith's term is due as the township rep on PRAC, and he'd like to serve another 4-year term. Trevor was appointed to the committee to finish the term of the previous township rep, who was unable to complete their term just due to ongoing work commitments. And so yeah, Trevor's been a welcome addition to the group, and we'd like to retain him for a bit longer. That's all I have for now.
Thanks, Matt. I'll read the recommendation and then we'll have questions or comments. Moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor McKenzie that the council of the town of Minto receives the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee minutes of November 29th, 2021 and approves any recommendation contained therein. And questions or comments? Must have done a good job, Matt. All in favor or not in favor? Who doesn't want to vote for that? Okay, carried. I'll turn it back to Mayor Bridge.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. And I've got the Economic Development Committee meeting, and I'll turn that over to Belinda. There she is. Thanks, Belinda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just quick highlights out of our economic development meeting from November 18th. Some interesting things were discussed. In particular was our downtown transition zoning in Harriston. We had brought this forward a couple of years ago, and for a variety of reasons, it got lessened as a priority at the time. And it's back on the table, and we have given direction to our building department to move ahead and proceed with the creation of a mixed-use zoning in Harriston for all the reasons identified within the minutes. We also talked a bit about downtown Palmerston commercial space and some current concerns that were raised around, yes, we need some apartments in the downtown, but on the main level, if you do create those, you lessen the size of the retail space. And so there's concerns around that. So we asked if Ashley could look into some bylaws and what other communities are doing around that, bring back some recommendations to us. So looking forward to receiving that. We also went over what our 2022 ECDEV priorities are, and it should be no surprise, workforce is the #1 priority, and implementing the Western Wardens workforce strategy. We're looking forward to seeing what comes out of that and how we can do our role in helping with that issue. Attainable housing, no surprise there. Continuing to welcome new people and then retaining them once they are here. Follows along with resident attraction, and then obviously our ECDEV and cultural plan strategy for next year. So lots of good stuff at that meeting, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Belinda. Yeah, very good meeting. There was a lot of interesting stuff happening. Any questions? Okay, Deputy Mayor Turton, go ahead.
It's not a question, Belinda. I've just heard so many great comments about what our downtowns look like, not just at Christmas time, but all year round. So kudos.
Thank you. Can't take all the credit. Definitely have to give kudos to our friends in Public Works, Paul especially, and all of our downtown revite beautification groups. It's truly a team effort, and that's why it looks so great.
Yeah, no, it totally is, and as Deputy Mayor Turton says, there's lots of great comments out there. So make sure everybody gets those. So moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor Elliott, the Council of Town of Minto receives the Economic Development Planning Committee minutes of November 18th, 2021, and approves any recommendations contained here therein. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Okay, roundtable. Go ahead.
So again, just some quick highlights out of this. As Matt mentioned, the Minto Youth Action Council is up and going and doing some great work over there at the Grove. It's a great spot for them to be working. and looking forward to see what comes out of their stuff next year when we've allocated some funds to help them implement their actions. The museum, again, is doing, obviously closed for the season, but has applied for some grants. So we're looking forward to hearing back on those and how it's going to help us in 2022. Want to give a huge shout out to our Culture Days Committee. If you haven't seen, we were recognized as a top participating community in Canada. We placed 3rd, and we hosted 32 events. So kudos to Gord and Peggy and Megan and Aaron and Jennifer Frayne and all the group that was involved in planning that wonderful month of activities. Like I mentioned previously, we're looking at updating our cultural plan in 2022, and we will be undertaking that ourselves and looking forward to getting out there and engaging with the community to make sure it's really a community-driven plan. And then we just talked about some of our budget stuff for 2022. Derek gave us a little update on the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Project. So we're looking forward to hearing back on that in the new year. And then Gord is working away on all the Spark stuff. So yeah, it's busy, gonna be a busy year in 2022.
Thanks, Belinda. Any comments or questions? Just, it was really great to see that cultural days because I was sitting at Ottawa at FCM, and one of the representatives from Yorkton, who I get along fine with, Randy, and she was bragging about Yorkton doing so well. And I said, oh, isn't that Minto ahead of you by 1? So that was really good that we beat out Yorkton, Saskatchewan as well. So as they say, that was a big list, and it was right across Canada. So kudos to the group and everybody that was involved in that. That's really amazing. It's nice when the mayor gets to brag. So that was always good. Anyways.
Mayor Bridge, if I could just mention, we did host a number of events in November, and I wanted to thank everyone that came out and supported them. They were extremely successful, and we are wrapping up our season of events this Saturday. We have Candyland Christmas in Hairston with Mrs. Claus. And then, of course, the Fire and Ice event is going to be bigger and better than ever before. So if you're around, come on out to the Palmerston Community Center, December 31st from 7 to 8.
Looking forward to it. Very good. Thank you. And so I moved by Councillor Guzzo, second by Councillor Dirksen. The Council of Town of Minto receives the Cultural Roundtable Committee minutes of November 22nd, 2021, and approves any recommendations contained therein. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, good. Next up, I have the Minto Trails Committee minutes, and I have Paul is going to be doing this, Paul Judge. And Paul, nice to see you. And I, on behalf of the council that were on the parade float, thank you very much. And I'm sure somebody's going to maybe mention it anyways later, but fantastic job on the float. It was really neat. And the only thing that we did see, one other float had a fire pit in Palmerston, and I wondered maybe if you can add that to next year's float, because our feet were getting a little cold. We were all sitting in the truck like Gene and Dave. Some of us are outside. So, but anyways, pass it on to your troops. Whoever helped you with that, you did an amazing job. And it was well done, because Deputy Mayor Turton couldn't even break it driving it around. So it really worked out well. Anyways, before you get started, you can get started now. And there.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Good to hear it was well received. But I'll get to the task here that I'm on council this afternoon for, just the minutes from the recent Trails Committee meeting that we held. It was the first one we've done in person, social distance and masked, etc. But it was also kind of a strange feeling to be in that environment again, because it's been so long. But in the absence of being able to meet in person or take on any events or contests or whatnot that we would like to do, members of the committee, the volunteers there have been plugging away at some things that have been projects they could do, small things. We got some painting done. We did some cleaning out of birdhouses along the trail, so that got some people out and active, and some useful chores done. And staff, we've been doing regular maintenance, mowing and limbing and clearing up any litter, vandalism, that sort of thing. But this was a meeting where we took a look at some finances too, because we haven't done events, et cetera. money hasn't been being spent the last couple of years. So we've dedicated the next meeting in January to really brainstorm, have the members of the committee bring forward their thoughts on what the priorities for tasks and projects will be for 2022, and that way we'll make use of the winter months to get a game plan in place so that we're not doing our brainstorming when the weather is conducive to doing the actual work. So a lot of the volunteers expressed a keenness, eagerness to continue with any sort of task that they're able to participate in. So that's always good to see that enthusiasm from members of the committee. Another item that has been taken care of, committee member Joe Welsh, along with staff member Grace Wilson, they've been putting their efforts together to develop some new trail signage for the greenway sections in Harriston, particularly those that are on private property that have agreements with the town, and just a positive way of identifying that to users, because a lot we've heard frequently that users may not understand that those trails are on property that belongs to the landowners, and they're actually sharing that with the users. We've heard here the occasional bit of banter back and forth where those people are actually having some negative feedback to the landowners and don't understand that they're actually the one who's borrowing land, not the other way around. Other things in the round table, longtime member of the Palmerston Trails Committee, Scotty Forbes, had recently passed away. So some of the members, including myself, weren't aware of that, but we very quickly came to the conclusion that we want to do something to recognize him. So we're going to put that on our agenda for January as well too. We'd like to do something that's meaningful and significant. So whether it's perhaps naming a section of trail for him, because he and his wife Susan are both very active on the Trails Committee up until recently. And I think that sums up what was discussed at the meeting here in November.
Thanks, Paul. And questions for Paul? Okay. Moved by Councilor McKenzie, second by Councilor Anderson. The Council of Town of Minto receives the Minto Trails Committee minutes of November 29th, 2021 and approves any recommendations contained therein. Anybody opposed? Hearing none. Carried. Okay, thank you. Staff reports. And we have, I do believe Mr. White's on here, and I will turn it. Do you want to start this off, Derek?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have before you tonight a report, and I believe it's our third update report to you on the process of updating the official plan by the County of Wellington. In short, we are opposed to the county removing policy 6.4.7 and its impact on our rural settlements or hamlets. But I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. White, to maybe go through a little bit more detail, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Derek, Mayor Bridge, members of council and staff. It's a pleasure to be with you today and to see those faces that I can see on Zoom. In answer to your earlier question, Mayor Bridge, it is not snowing here. So it's 67 degrees and sunny. I'll be very brief on the report. I think Derek gave a great synopsis, and I do appreciate his support and participation during this process. It has been going on for a long time, and it looks like it's going to continue to go on well into 2022. The first, just looking at the report, the first paragraph in the background talks about what an official plan is, and I think you've seen that written in various ways 1,000 times before. You know about provincial policy statement and the growth plan, and that council's initiatives must comply with the intent of the official plan. The comprehensive review to update the county official plan is not unique just to Wellington. It's happening across Ontario, and one of the things that's interesting to see is that hearing through the grapevine that many of them are not going to meet the July deadline for having this complete. It's not clear yet whether Wellington will or not, but it sure is a huge challenge for them. And frankly, their consultants and the staff have done a lot of hard work to get it to where it is. It's about to hit the road, the part where rubber hits the road, and public comments start coming in. So that is where I wonder what's going to happen as they move forward and whether they can comply with the timeline, but that remains to be seen. I think council has been very positive in putting forward comments that are of concern to it, and the county has been responsive to those in most cases. Your July 13th comments are at the bottom of page 1 of the report. We talked about updating the mapping, and they have done that. The last bullet point about the technical committee being restarted, that has happened too. And then they've responded in a report issued, I think last week or maybe the week before, on some of the other comments on the 3 or 4 bullet points in between. We'll go into a little bit more detail here on those 3 bullet points, because those are where we think, Derek and I, and that council ought to focus its attention. So the county response is shown to your various points in that chart on page 2. As I said, I don't think they've ruled out the comments that the town's made, but I think some of the steps taken on this recent official plan amendment started go towards impacting rural Minto and rural Wellington in ways that I think would be more restrictive than provincial policy and would not be in the municipality's best interest. It's clear what the county wants to do over the next 30 years, and that is to focus growth on urban areas where full municipal services are. And that's what the comprehensive review is likely to do, and that should be supported. That is what provincial policy states, but I don't think they need to go as far as they intend to do on the rural settlement areas. And I think that's important for Minto, just because it's part of what Minto is. And you know, in addition to the urban areas, we have small communities where every once in a while a little bit of infilling or rounding out development may be required and warranted, and I think policy shouldn't be so restrictive as to prevent that from happening. Just as far as the technical committee, we met, I guess it was last month, fairly short notice on the information that came forward, but it had been a few months since we'd met, and it was a very beneficial meeting. What is clear now is that there's a 2-phase process going. Official plan amendment number 119, which is where you're being asked to comment on today, will implement the new urban area structure for the county comprehensive review, and then they're amending the phase 1 report and moving to phase 2 and 3 to try and finish this process by next summer. Draft official plan amendment 119, there's a linked report on the county. We go through it a little bit in there. On page 4, I guess, of the report, there's the settlement area and structural hierarchy. And the issue I think Minto should bring forward again is with the bottom half of that, the rural system. And the issue with the rural system, again, is it appears that official plan amendment 119 will be much more restrictive than provincial policy, which does allow rounding out and infilling of rural settlements. And the county had that policy in their official plan. You can see at the bottom, second paragraph on page 5, 6.4.7, it allowed limited minor redevelopment in rural settlements. And that was an important policy to recognize little rural areas, little settlement areas in rural places like Minto, like Drew, or any one of the many corners where we have a little bit of development. The provincial policy was specifically changed in 2019 and 2020 to allow that to be rounded out and infilled. And for whatever reason, I think the county's settlement structure wants to go a little bit farther than that and turn back the clock to prohibiting any kind of or severely limiting any kind of rounding out and infilling. So I think that the recommendation would be in order to not support removal of that section that recognize rural settlements. I think this is an issue probably for most lower tier or local tiers in Wellington, and I'm wondering if there are others that are speaking about this section, but I think it could stay in, and that section could stay in, and the county could still direct the majority of its growth to urban areas where municipal services are available. I don't know why they want to take that out. In their report, their reasoning is that they don't think it'll affect things because the underlying policies allow development, but it really doesn't. It would only allow, in most cases, one new lot. It wouldn't allow someone to put a small commercial development in, or serving the agricultural area. So that's the first part. The main concern about official plan amendment 119. It's going ahead independent of the comprehensive review. County is allowed to do that, but it's a little challenging because the tech committee never saw that amendment. It kind of popped up over the intervening months between our last meeting and now, and so it's good that Minto has a chance to comment on it, and so that's part of the recommendation. The second part is the phase 1 update report on the municipal comprehensive review, and that's again, you've heard in the previous reports about population allocation and how much growth is going to be allowed in Minto and so forth. And the short answer is that they're allocating. Looks like they're going to allocate some rural development to Palmerston, and the number of units per year will go up from 63 to roughly 66 per year on average for Minto. And that's, I mean, when I was working for the town and we got to around 50, I'm not sure what has been happening the last few years, but I know it's been real busy. So we believe, Derek and I, that at that rate, Minto will have most of the growth that it would want to have. And looking at the infrastructure, which I gather you did at budget not too long ago, there's some upgrades that need to be done and some things that need to be started short term, but overall, the infrastructure in the urban areas is pretty good, certainly for the next few years. And in the case of Clifford, for example, not much upgrade needed there at all. So we believe the county has hit the mark on what growth is being allocated to Minto. The issue that we brought up in the meeting and listening to the other municipalities comment, and even looking at the recent report where they summarize those comments, is what happens if, say, Center Wellington or Erin, where the majority of growth is being focused, don't meet their targets, and what happens if, say, Minto or Wellington North or some other areas start to get growth at a higher rate, and how can they reallocate that, and how can the county not back itself into the corner so that Minto or some other municipality doesn't have to wait till the next comprehensive review to expand an urban area. And they address that in their reports. And you'll recall when we did the boundary adjustment in Palmerston, how long that took. I think now is, and it was said in the meeting, now is the time for the county to come up with a policy and procedure to allow that to happen, so that this amendment is the county's amendment and the local municipalities amendment and update, and not the province's amendment. So we believe there's a way that they can do that and write policy that allows things to shift around if it needed to happen. The way they're heading right now, and it goes to this definition of what are excess lands. They're getting, I think, feedback from the province that it's not very flexible, but I think that's from a staff level and not necessarily at a political level. So this is the first kind of comprehensive review where new provincial policy is being implemented. And I think that keeping flexibility and not being rigid is very, very important moving forward. I think, and I expressed it at the meeting, I feel like they're maybe trying to put a too fine a point on their growth projections, because they are just that, growth projections. And soon they're going to start setting aside lands. And while it looks like there's going to be lots of land for Minto, if things change in the next 30 years, how can we jointly respond to that and reallocate if need to be reallocated? And the final point is, I think if it's fine to wait for the comprehensive review that happens every 10 years, but if you look at what's happening now, here we are. There are probably most municipalities in Ontario aren't going to meet their deadline. So, you know, does that mean that it really is too rigid and they're really trying to pigeonhole policy too restrictive? And maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to build some flexibility in. And I would hope that Minto in their comments and the mayor and county councillor Anderson, when they go back, can continue to talk to the county about keeping this flexibility in, flexibility for reallocating growth and flexibility in rural settlement areas. I think it's going to be important if the collective groups are going to meet the growth, which is very ambitious for Wellington. I mean, it goes from 9th in the greater Golden Horseshoe to 3rd over the next 30 years. So we're going to need all the tools available. We're going to need flexibility, and the worry here is they're heading in a more restrictive direction. And again, a lot of that policy isn't out yet, but it remains to be seen. But I think Minto should keep making its point. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Bill. Deputy Mayor Turton.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. So, Bill, you seem quite happy in reference to the OPA. I mean, other than them 2 comments, you're quite happy with the targets and where we're headed?
If I may, Deputy Mayor Turton, yes, I think Derek would agree that as far as Minto's development interests long-term, they seem to be maintaining those in urban areas. We're a little concerned about them being more restrictive than provincial policy in rural areas, but overall, I think it's heading in the right direction. I think we would agree that some flexibility definitely needs to be maintained, or we're going to be stuck in this cumbersome process at some point and think an opportunity could be missed.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important as well. I mean, to have you and Derek on our team advising us on this is pretty important to us. So thank you for your input.
Thank you, Richard. And Councillor Elliott.
Bill, these recommendations, did you mention that it's all at a staff level? It's not been to a political level yet. So they're just recommendations from the staff to the Wellington County. That restriction may be more restrictive and such like, or has it been confirmed anywhere?
If I may, through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, it has been to their county planning committee, but official plan amendment 119 will be the first sort of full-blown political decision on this. So I think that some of this is likely being talked about at county level, but you're correct. A decision has not been made, so it really is staff driven at this point.
Should we as a council possibly put together some sort of motion saying that we're not in favor of this?
I believe we have that, Councillor Elliott, coming up.
Okay.
It's in I think my recommendation.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it covers off what we're concerned about.
And that's being sent off to the county?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Anybody else? I agree with Bill, and one of the things that come to mind, Bill, we had that, you did a little drawing one time of the Tivadale hamlet, and that would be one that it just makes a lot of sense that there would be commercial and other things could enter in there. There's land available. They've got a lot of the services there, except for sewer and water, but they've got gas, they've got internet, they've got all the things that you need to develop. And I worry about why the county wants to be more restrictive than the province. And what we're hearing from the premier all the time is, and this is why it worries me, and I think your point of that staff are talking about it at the provincial level and not necessarily the politicians, because he keeps talking about, you know, local governments getting out of the way so we can get these things going and get this housing thing going and all that stuff. And here we are with a restrictive possibly more restrictive from the county, which doesn't make any sense. And I'll be speaking to the county level on that for sure. And the province, which tells us on one hand that they want to be more open and inviting, and the other hand, maybe coming up with some rules that are going to be hard to change, and going every 4 or 5 years and doing this over and over again doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm really happy that you're there, giving Derek the input that he needs as well. And I think that, you know, we see what we can do individually when we did the urban boundary expansion in Minto, so in Palmerston and whatnot. So I think we got to keep this thing flexible if we're going to survive, because there's 57,000 people going to be coming in our area, and where are we going to house them? Where are we going to do all this if we don't have the ability to be a little bit more flexible? And if one town can't get it done, then maybe another town is able to get it done and keep going on that. So I thank you for your comments and for your thing on that. So anybody else? If not, I've got a motion here. I'm going to read it. I think I got it here. Recommendation. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Deputy Mayor Turton. The Council of Town of Minto receives the December 7th, 2021 update report 3 from the CEO on Triton Engineering regarding the status of the municipal comprehensive review, the county official plan, proposed official plan amendment 119. The following comments be forwarded. The Minto Council opposes removal of section 6.47 from the county official plan so that existing rural settlements remain recognized as provided for in provincial policy and the growth plan, and so that minor infilling and rounding out is permitted under specific conditions. That the Minto Council reiterate the need for clear policies and comprehensive review around urban boundary expansions up to 40 hectares, and where there is no net increase of land supply, to encourage flexibility, reduce boundary rigidity, and to increase land development opportunities. And number 2, policy to allow urban areas to expand outside the comprehensive review where population and employment target are exceeding, including reallocation of surplus growth from municipalities not meeting targets. So that's what I'm saying, Councillor Elliott. I think that sort of covers off what you were talking about, and that'll be forwarded to the county. So anybody opposed to that recommendation? Hearing none, pass. Thank you. Thanks, Bill, and enjoy Texas, eh?
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry
You
Christmas.
go to Terry for us.
Merry
Thank
Christmas, Bill, to you and yours.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Now, next up is, I've got planning technicians, and I'm going to have, there she is, Ashley, going to start this off. She's got quite a few, so keep it rolling, Ash.
I only have 5 today, so.
25. That's what I said. It's amazing how many things are happening. You know, we talked about that before.
Yeah. So good afternoon, Mayor Bridge and members of council. So this first severance report is for John and Christine Lenselink's property at 6217 on the 5th line. They're proposing to sever approximately 3 acres with an existing dwelling, pool, and shed from the remainder of the property, and it will be a surplus farm dwelling severance. The retained portion is going to be approximately 100 acres, and it will be required to be rezoned to prohibit future residential development as a condition of their severance approval. Other than that, standard conditions are recommended, including financial, access and servicing, and including the rezoning as well. Town staff have been advised that the existing barn will be or is in the process of being removed, and this condition of severance can be cleared once town staff complete a site inspection. So our recommendation is that council recommends the Land Division Committee approve the consent application with the conditions outlined in the report.
Questions? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder for that? I don't have that, do I? No.
You do, Mayor Bridge. I believe it is Councillor
it?
Anderson and
Oh,
Councillor
I'm sorry,
Dirksen.
right at the top. Sorry, right at the top, Annalee, missed it. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Dirksen. Okay. Has anybody got any questions? I think this is kind of we've had this one for a while. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, next up.
So this next consent application is for a lot line adjustment at Hans Rubicki's place. So he owns 15 Palmerston Street East and 164 Queen Street South in Harrison, and the properties' backyards abut each other. So he currently lives in 15 Palmerston Street East, and he's proposing a lot line adjustment on the rear portion of the adjacent property to bring into his property legally. Both properties are currently designated by the county official plan and the town zoning as residential, and they will both meet the current requirements. Standard conditions are recommended, including financial, access, and servicing. That being said, servicing and access is already existing for both properties. The recommendation is that council recommends the Land Division Committee approve the consent application with the conditions outlined in the report.
And I've got a mover, Deputy Mayor Turton, seconded by Councillor Gunson. So I'll put it on the table. Any concerns, any questions? Oh, there's Councillor Dirksen. Go ahead.
Not really concerned, just wanting to make sure that I understand this. So he's basically trading backyards. So he's moving a backyard from one property to the other property. Is that what's going on?
Yes, so he lives at 15 Palmerston and he's done quite a bit of work on it and additions and that kind of thing. So I'm assuming he may be wanting to sell 164, but that's just speculation. But that would be the reason for him taking the backyard of the other one.
Okay, super, thanks.
Okay.
No.
Anybody else? Anybody opposed? That's carried. Okay. Next up. Oh, this is an exciting one. Go ahead, Ashley.
So this one is quite exciting. So the staff report is regarding the site plan agreement for Hammond Manufacturing and the Palmerston Industrial Park. Property is approximately 13 acres in size, and council may recall it was recently purchased at the end of this year, or sorry, at the end of May this year. The purchasers run a family-owned manufacturing business from Guelph that has been in operation for over 100 years, and they are proposing a phased development on this property. So the site plan agreements for phase 1, which is roughly 100,000 square feet. It is a 1-story manufacturing facility with office space as well. Initially, it's going to employ 25 to 30 people, and there are plans to grow and hire more in the next phase. Phase 2 is also proposed on the drawings, and that site plan would be coming forward again for consideration at a later date. Site plan drawings have been reviewed by county planning and road staff, town staff, and our engineers are at Triton, and we are now satisfied with recommending the approval of the site plan agreement. We're just pending the review of County Roads Traffic Impact Study, which we have received and are just waiting for their comments. The site plan drawings associated with the final site plan agreement show the building location and size, landscaping, parking, loading spaces, a concrete patio along the front, fire routes, all of that fun stuff. So the town will retain 100% of the offsite work costs and securities prior to building permit issuance. And we also have a $5,000 deposit until completion of the site plan agreement. The owners will have 1 year from the date of occupancy of the building to finish all the works required in the site plan agreement, with the exception of the asphalt works, which will be required within 2 years of the town paving that portion of Minto Road. But ultimately, we are recommending the approval.
Questions? Okay. I got it moved by, hold on here. Moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor Gudson. No, that's not right.
For you, Mayor Bridge, it's moved by Councillor Dirksen and seconded by Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, where am I
For
missing
Hammond.
that?
I apologize if you're missing that on one of your pages.
Hammond's, okay. I'm gonna say I don't see it on here. So did you have it on there, Anthony?
Yeah, it's
So
on.
moved by Councillor Dirksen and seconded by Councillor Elliott.
Okay. Oh, I know. I went the wrong page. You're doing back-to-back pages for me. There you are. Okay. Thank you for putting that on for me. Any questions? Just a great to see this happening, and so I'll call the question. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, good. We have one more. Go ahead.
So this is another exciting one. So this is the site plan agreement for Minto Egg. So they do have a prior site plan agreement from 2014 with the initial construction of the building. They're now looking to expand. So the initial building is around 16,000 square feet, and they are proposing to expand an additional 21,500 square feet. So the building will have office space, retail space, industrial, and warehouse space. Initially, when Minto Egg first opened, they employed around 12 people, and they have since grown to 20. They anticipate with this addition that they will be able to continue to grow. The site plan drawings have been reviewed by county planning staff, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, town staff, and our engineers at Triton, and we're now satisfied with recommending the approval of the signing of the agreement. The same as Hammond's, we will retain 100% of the offsite works costs and securities if required for this one. And we will hold a $5,000 deposit until completion. The owners will have 1 year from the date of occupancy to finish all of the works required in the site plan agreement.
Okay. This is moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Anderson. Oh, sorry. No, moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Deputy Mayor Turton. Sorry. Go ahead. Any questions, concerns? Another great Deputy Mayor Turton. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no questions here, Ashley, but I mean, this is pretty amazing. This
Mhm.
is what we've been working for a long time. I mean, this 10 years old next year, and they've doubled their workforce, putting a big addition on. You know, they're right in the heart of Minto, and I mean, they're going to be there forever. I mean, it's the need to support our agriculture industry, and it's great to see.
Well said, Deputy Mayor Turton. Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Carry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anderson, do you have a hand up? Oh, I said all in favor, didn't I? Good for you. I'm just checking you. Anybody opposed? Sorry. All right, I'm coming along. All right. In fact, it's time to turn it over to Councillor Dirksen so I can get a breather here. Go ahead.
Yeah, you must be getting tired or something.
I am getting tired or something's happening.
Good to see all those hands go up, though. At least we were all listening. All right, we have a couple of items on the Public Works agenda this evening, and going to turn it over to our Roads and Drainage Manager, Mike McIsaac, to take us through them, please.
Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. So the purpose of the first report is an amendment to the bylaw is to have the ability to recoup the costs associated with the upgraded municipal drain number 24 tile system and the approved extras to the contract in order to complete the project. The extras associated with this drain are primarily conflicts dealing with Bell infrastructure along County Road 109, as well as additional connections and requests of landowners to improve their private tile systems on the property. So is there any questions with this one?
Mayor Turton.
Thank you, Chair Dirksen. So basically here, Mike, it was quoted on, and help me understand this, it was quoted at a certain amount. And because of Bell and all these other things that have pushed the price up,
yep,
we go back to the farmers, and the farmers don't have any choice but paying what we're asking, or help me.
So essentially with the extras that are associated with this project, a lot of them are associated with the personal asks of the individual landowners to improve their private tile systems, as well as any of the additional costs associated with the Bell infrastructure typically goes to the road authority as the primary owner of the right of way. So yeah, essentially with the additional costs associated to the project, we are going back to the landowners and the road authorities to ask for the additional funds associated with the project.
Understood.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Recommendation: the Council of the Town of Minto receive the report from the Treasurer and Road and Drainage Manager regarding Municipal Drain 24-2018 amended assessments for information only, and passes the related bylaw in open session. And that is moved by Councillor McKenzie and seconded by Councillor Anderson. There's no further questions. I will call a question. Is there anyone opposed? Is there anyone opposed? Yes, that's the right question. It's not as easy as it looks. Okay.
You must be tired too.
I am. Okay, it's a meeting day today. Okay, so the next item is also Public Works. So
Yeah.
I'll get you through the
Nope.
what you make.
Yeah, sounds good. So this the second item is just the annual contract with Wellington County for the town of Minto to maintain Wellington County roads 2 and 3, with no change from the previous year in compensation. However, if there is overages, unpredicted overages throughout the winter season, the county is willing to compensate accordingly throughout. Is there any questions with this one?
Okay, don't see any questions. So I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the report from the Road and Drainage Manager regarding the winter maintenance contract for County Roads 2 and 3, and the council accepts the compensation of $9,000 per kilometer for the 2021-2022 winter season from the County of Wellington. And that is moved by Councillor Gunson and seconded by Councillor Elliott. One more chance for questions. Okay, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And turn the chair back to our mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. And it's other businesses closed. And I have Councillor Anderson. Go ahead,
Yes.
Councillor.
I just wanted to give a big shout out to everybody involved, not just Belinda and Paul, but the groups, the town communities that got together to create the events. The Kris Kringle event on the Thursday evening was phenomenal. I've never seen, I mean, I've only been on council, what, 8 years or 7 years. I've never seen Santa Claus parades with the kind of crowds we had, and the weather wasn't all that delightful. And just the towns look great. They're decorated up. They look as good for this winter as they did for the summer, and they look pretty amazing in the summer. And it's just great to see that kind of involvement and busyness on our main streets. And just a big shout out to all the groups involved. Really, really well done.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, good job. And I've got Councillor Dirksen, did you have your hand up? Okay. No, Deputy Mayor Turton. Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. I was going down the same road as Councillor Anderson. I mean, the fire service, the way they stepped up, and every fire person, man or women, wanted to see those parades go. The amount of time and effort that they put into the planning and working hard on, and seeing them right through to the end, it was absolutely fantastic. And I mean, the way the people come out, standing on the side of the streets in all three of our towns, agree, it was pretty amazing. And I mean, with Paul and Mike and the three guys that come out, Doug, Clark, and Mike, to the three different town buildings to for us to get the float out. I mean, that's volunteering. And I mean, our towns are extremely good at it. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Yeah, it was fantastic to be out there and see it all. I had an interesting thing last night. The chamber had John retired from the chamber after 30 some years, and maybe more. He said 50 years altogether. He's been in the chamber, JC's in Oakville before he became a chamber member. And they just had the executive out, and I was able to bring greetings from the town and explain that really, to be honest with you, through this pandemic, the relationship with the chamber and how that we've worked with the businesses certainly allowed this council and even the county councils to get everything they needed to get out there to help as best we could. And that relationship doesn't exist. John mentioned it. He's been around for a while and been in different chambers, and he said, we've got a really unique gift here where we've been able to work together with the chamber as well as we have, and such a strong chamber. So I was able to bring those greetings for you on your behalf, because I know how you feel about it last night. So it was a nice little event, very small, because we couldn't have the big Christmas event that we have every other year. But certainly I did bring all your thoughts to John and to the Chamber of Commerce that were sitting there last night. So on your behalf, I did that. And I don't have anything else. Has anybody got anything else? So I guess Annalene, we can wrap up and then come back at 5.
Oops, through you, Mayor Bridge. We can take a recess now until 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Mayor Bridge is on the road, and so I'm going to chair this public meeting. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I'd like to state that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Minto before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the town of Minto to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Now, I'll ask Clerk McRobb to state the following.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Turton. The proposed town-initiated zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a number of properties within and adjacent to the urban centers of Clifford, Harriston, and Palmerston in relation to OPA 117, which adjusts the boundaries of 3 urban centers in the town of Minto in order to redirect growth to locations that can be developed more efficiently and cost-effectively on full municipal services. Details of the proposed amendments to implement OPA 117 are provided. It is for Harriston, 15.4 hectares or 38 acres of land in Harriston to be rezoned from future development to agricultural site specific and from industrial to agricultural site specific. In Clifford, it is 68.5 hectare or 169.3 acres of land in Clifford to be rezoned from future development to agricultural site specific, from future development site specific to future development, from future development site specific to agricultural site specific, from natural environment site specific to natural environment, and from open space site specific to open space zones. In Palmerston, it's 66 hectares or 163.1 acres of land in Palmerston be rezoned from agricultural site specific to medium density residential with a holding, from agricultural site specific to medium density residential, from agricultural site specific to future development, from agricultural site specific zone with a holding to medium density residential with a holding, and from agricultural site specific to medium density residential. The notices were mailed to property owners directly impacted by the zoning bylaw amendment, as well as applicable agencies on November 12th, 2021, and published in the Wellington Advertiser on November 18th, 2021. Reports and comments have been received from our town staff, Wellington County staff, as well as Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and were attached for council to review. And back to you, please, Deputy Mayor Turton.
Thank you, Annalene. You must practice that a lot, because there's a lot of stuff there. I'd like to ask, so where am I here? So we'll ask our county planner, Jessica. Yeah, we'll ask Jessica Rahim to provide comments regarding the proposed amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 0186. Jessica, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad I didn't have to read all that out. Thank you. I'm just going to do a quick overview. So the public meeting is being held tonight for a town-initiated zoning bylaw amendment to bring the Minto zoning bylaw into conformity with the recent OPA 117 that was adopted in March of this year. If you recall, OPA 117 was an application to adjust the boundaries of the 3 urban centers in the town of Minto, being Clifford, Harriston, and Palmerston. And the intent of that was to redirect growth to locations that can be more efficiently and cost effectively developed on full municipal services. So my report summarizes all those zone changes that are being recommended by staff. Just a few things that I wanted to recap from my report. So specifically 41 Park Street West in Clifford. So this property is currently zoned future development site specific 25. And we're recommending that the lands that remain within the urban boundary are to be rezoned to a straight future development designation. And that's in order to bring it into conformity with the official plan designation, which is also future development. And the lands that were removed from the urban boundary are to be rezoned to an A-1 zone. So this site-specific zoning is placed on properties within 1 kilometer of the urban boundary. I just wanted to make it clear that the site-specific FD25 that's being removed there, we're not taking anything away from those property owners. They're continued to operate their agricultural use on the property with the zone change, because they did go through a recent zoning amendment. So I just want to make sure that everything that they've asked for is still able to apply to these properties. Another property is the Clark Heinmiller property at 65 Warren Street in Palmerston. So this property was given a split designation. And so we're just following along with the zoning there to have the residential zone fall in line with the residential designation on the front portion of the property, and then the rear portion of the property will be a future development designation, but a site specific, and that was placed on the property through the subdivision agreement. So I just wanted to bring attention to that one, that we've been following the official plan designation for the split zoning there. Another property was the holding on the Let Street areas. So these lands were brought into the urban boundary. They have existing residential uses on them. And we're recommending to place a site-specific holding on the property to allow them to continue their existing uses, but that no future development would be permitted until there's full municipal services brought to that area. And then the last property that I wanted to talk about was the Jane and Elgin Street area. So again, these areas are to be rezoned R2 if they have an existing dwelling on the property. And then we've placed a holding on the property that aren't developed yet. So again, bringing it into conformity with the official plan designation that is now residential in these areas. And so at this time, we've also received comments from Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, which they provided no objection to the zoning bylaw amendment. And Maitland Valley Conservation Authority also provided comments that we're going to incorporate into the bylaw. They've recommended additional comments on the holdings there. So if council has any questions about my report, I'm here to answer any of those.
Thank you, Jessica. What we'll do is we'll wait for a couple other reports and then we'll have questioning. So at this time, we'll ask Ashley Sawyer, Town of Minto's planning technician, to provide comments regarding the proposed amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 0186. Sorry, we have our mayor back. Mayor Bridge, do you want to take over this? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmute. Thanks for stepping in. I can take it over if you want, doesn't matter.
Whatever you want, you're the boss here. Ashley,
all right,
go ahead. So I'll pass the chair over to our mayor.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Turton, for stepping in. Sorry about the delay. The roads are a little slipperier than I thought. Okay, go ahead, Ashley.
We accept your apology.
So I don't have anything further to add. I believe Jessica's covered it very well. That being said, our town report covers very similarly to what the county has covered as well. But our recommendation is that the town receives the report and considers passing a bylaw in open session. I just want to note too, tonight's just the public meeting. The bylaw will not be brought forward until the next meeting.
Right. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, and now I have Annalene, is there speakers online here, or did somebody want to speak?
Yes, through you, Mayor Bridge, we have Joanne Boland, who is an impacted property owner. And if you just give us a minute, we will
bring Joanne on.
Have her come up. And there she comes. And once she puts on her video and unmutes herself, then she'll be able to speak to this.
Okay. Go ahead, Joanne.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we own the property that's actually Brunswick, 455 Brunswick Street. And it's a 10-acre farm. So what it appears to me is that we're going to be part A1 and part A2 withholding on it. So we just received the report yesterday. It wasn't made public until just yesterday. So I think our main concern is we just haven't had enough time to really understand what the report means. Ashley and Jessica have been very kind to speak to me about it and cover off a lot of the questions. But we'd still like to do a little more investigation. I've talked to MPAC about our taxes, and they told me that we would be reassessed upon rezoning. So that's a concern to us. We kind of wondered if the zoning needs to change immediately. When we were told that the urban boundary would be extended to our property, the taxes would not change. So that's kind of a question that we have right now. And I haven't gotten any further with MPAC on that. I simply asked them to have an expert evaluator call me to discuss that, because what they're saying is that, yes, our taxes will change. And my understanding was that they wouldn't change, because we're a bit of an different situation here because we do have a farm, we do have chickens. We have quite a few different uses here. So we just wanted to understand a little further what all of the rezoning means for us going forward.
Okay, Joanne, just a question. Are you classed as a farm now as far as taxes go?
The house is like residential, so we do
Okay.
have mill
Yep.
rate for the house, and then the rest is, yes, it's all subsidized or whatever through the tax for farms.
Okay. Yeah, that's maybe a question for Gord. I don't know, Jessica or Ashley, did you want to speak to that? Or Gord can maybe.
So I'll let Gord speak more in depth, but from my understanding, your tax rate's not based on your zoning and designation, it's based on the actual use of the property.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but go ahead, Gord, maybe.
Yes, Ashley's correct. The zoning has no impact in theory. However, if MPAC is going to change it, if they change the assessment, it's more the assessment class, I'm thinking. That would be the thing, and we're just kind of the end of that process. So unless perhaps Ms. Boland could find out a bit more, are they thinking it's going to be like farmland awaiting development, or because really these things are just kind of drawing lines on a map right now, and if the property is still being used for what it was done after the bylaw, I'm not really seeing why there should be a change, but it is up to MPAC, unfortunately, and we don't have a lot of local control over that.
Yeah, so, and I understand that. We just were looking at the report, and with the R2H on it, there's several restrictions that are going to appear as soon as we're rezoned. And we just kind of wondered why we would be rezoned and have restrictions put on. Why not just wait until possibly residences could be built or severances could take effect and then change our zoning? So we were, just kind of wondering about the timing of this, because when I asked about the urban boundary back in the beginning of the year, everyone said there's no real effect on you. Nothing is really going to change in the near term for sure, and not for years to come is what they said. So we just want some time to look into this a little further. So in order to do that, we just feel compelled to put in an objection at this point, at least, so that it does give us some options and does give us possibly some time down the road if we feel that we really don't like our zoning.
Jessica, did you want to speak to that? I didn't know if you had your thing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention, just like so Joanne was saying, that the timing on it, she wasn't sure that the timing. So the intent of the zoning tonight is to bring it into conformity with the official plan that was approved or adopted earlier this year. So the timing has been initiated through town staff and wanting to get everything cleared up, right? Because right now, if we leave the agricultural zoning on the portion of her property, it doesn't match what the official plan is. So that's kind of why we decided to move forward as staff to bring the zoning forward so that we can be in conformity. The holding is placed on this area, and I understand that we brought it into a residential zone, we brought it into the urban boundary, and then we put a holding on it, like you can't do anything on your property. So this is a unique area with the intent to have potential future development without or on full municipal services. So the holding, we're trying to allow existing uses to continue there while being in conformity with the official plan, but also place a holding so that we can have a little bit more control, not control, sorry, but a little bit more of an overview to make sure that the whole area can get developed on full municipal services.
Right.
I did notice that, sorry, I did notice that the larger parcels were actually just designated as FD for future development. So I wondered if that might be a better option for our farm too. But again, I don't know because we haven't had enough time to look into it. So we're just concerned that no one, the verbiage, I guess, around the R2H doesn't mention agricultural use. And we just wanted to, make sure that we could continue with whatever we wanted to do on our farm if it's agricultural. And so currently we have chickens, but we only have them in the summer. We don't currently have chickens right now. So at the time of passing this, the use is actually nothing. So we're a little concerned with that as well. So we just want to make sure that we can continue. If we wanted to have some animals here, we could.
So a little bit further clarification on that. So the lands that the larger farm parcels in Palmerston that are going to a future development zoning also have a future development official plan designation. So they are staying in line with each other there, where there's a residential designation on the Let Street area, including your properties. So that's why the zoning has gone to an R2. The holding that we're proposing to place on the property does allow for existing uses to continue to operate that are legally established. So provided that everything is legally established, your house, your barn, they can continue to operate on the property as a permitted use.
Okay.
Yeah, so whatever you're doing there now is allowed to continue, and it's just more, and like I said, you would be able to do an addition to your house if at the future you wanted to do that. You'd be able to build a garage on your property, a detached garage, if that's what you were looking at, but no severances or future development that way has been placed in the holding.
So even though we don't have cattle here, we would have the option to have cattle. We could do any type of agricultural operation on our farm. Is that what you're saying, and continue with that?
So it would be through you have the barn on your property, so you
Yes,
can
we have a
continue
large
to
barn.
operate. So provided that you followed all your proper MDS setbacks, nutrient management strategy, all of those, then your agricultural use should continue to operate.
Okay, thank you.
So the way I see it then, Joanne, is you can still do what you're doing now. And down the road, if it ever get to the point where you decided you wanted to develop it, at that point in time, you'd have to come back, Jessica, right? She'd have to come back and then sever some lots or whatever it would be if we were able to do it at that point in time, based on where our services are and all the other stuff.
Yeah, through you. So exactly, that they would have to come back if they wanted to develop it. Again, if anything, it's a little bit of a benefit that we've gone to the R2 zoning as opposed to the future development, because if we put a future development zoning, then they'd have to come back for a zoning amendment. With the R2, it allows for a range of residential uses, so they would just be applying to remove the holding at that time, if they could work out that all the full municipal services are there.
You see what I'm saying, Joanne? It's sort of a benefit to you having the R2.
Oh, I see that. Yes, I see that. But
but you could still do with what you're doing. I mean, obviously, you're not. It sounds like you're not wanting to develop it at this point in time. You enjoy the 10 acres and the farm and the chickens and all the other stuff, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that gives you still that option. And as far as impact goes, I think Gord's right. I mean, the zoning isn't what's going to affect it. It'll be, and with impact, you never know. I can never figure them out. Sometimes they change our classifications all the time.
Yeah, so that I guess would be just the last question that's up in the air.
Yeah, which we wouldn't have much control over.
Yeah. So our other another question I had was, how does this OPA 117 I guess dovetail into that secondary plan, the West Palmerston secondary plan that we had meetings on a couple of years ago, I guess, and is that what actually became the OPA 117?
Jessica, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I did talk to our policy department earlier today, and the West Palmerston secondary plan. So that did take into a few more properties and considerations that what we're that compared to what we're just discussing tonight with the zoning. But the part of that secondary plan that captures your property was brought in through the OPA 117. So for your property, the OPA 117 is capturing the secondary plan there.
Is there still a secondary plan on the table?
No, though the official plan amendments have been adopted. So and specifically for your property, it's been brought in through the OK 117. So there isn't, I know we were talking on the phone earlier about bringing in your entire property. That has been brought off the table because the OPA 117 has been adopted.
And the West Palmerston secondary plan, has it been more or less shelved?
I don't know all the details because I didn't work on that specifically, but I do believe that it has been brought in through 2 different official plan amendments based on I think there was the North Clifford area as well as the West Palmerston. So those have both been brought in through 2 different official plan amendments, but they've both been adopted. And now we're working on bringing the zoning into conformity for both of those official plan amendments.
I understand Wellington County is working on a land use policy. Would they also be looking at our surrounding farmlands and our particular property in that study?
So I think you're talking about the municipal comprehensive review. And that is, again, it's a county-wide project. So it does look at every municipality. They are assessing the residential, the employment lands, and trying to determine where growth allocation would be located. So I don't know, again, specific details if your property is being looked at. For that, I think it might have been looked at in more detail with the secondary plan and the OPA 117. So I don't know if it's specifically going to address your property for that.
Yeah, Derek or Ashley, I think that we're in a situation here. Derek, do you want to take this? Because I do believe what Joanne is asking is, will be reviewed again? I don't believe so. I think we've already done the, this is over and above what we've done locally, right?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Joanne. So the comprehensive review that's taking place right now by the county doesn't look at existing urban boundaries. So whatever's already in the urban boundary, which came into force in fact back in March, and then the zoning being looked at this meeting, they will look outside of that line now as they try to determine, as Jessica has described, employment lands, residential lands, those types of things. So I guess the best way to answer your question is that no, your property is not going to get looked at again.
Yeah.
Oh, because that is one thing we did want them to look at it. When we were doing the secondary plan, we made the comment that it doesn't make sense to have a part of our property, part of the urban, and part of it not in the urban, especially when we also have a ditch that dissects the property. So now we're kind of looking at several acres that has borders all around it. It has the border of the urban boundary, the border of the landfill site behind us, a border on the ditch where the ditch is, and actually it borders the extension of Brunswick Street. So there's going to be, I don't know, maybe 5 acres there, whatever it is. That's, you know, what do you do with it? It's going to be hard to access with farm equipment if the rural areas become, you know, more built up, if the urban areas actually do develop into homes. So that's our concern just going forward. We're hoping
Yeah.
to stay here for years to come, but 10 years down the road, this might become an issue for us.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could. So anything that's drawn in the new line now won't be looked at, but that doesn't mean we won't be looking at things outside the urban boundary to meet the needs for the next 30 years.
Okay.
So I just want to be absolutely clear. I know this stuff I get confused about it all the time. So I just want to be clear. So what's in the urban boundary now is won't be looked at again, but anything that's outside that boundary could potentially be looked at as we move forward with the comprehensive municipal review, which the county is working on right now. Myself and former CEO Bill White sit on the technical team. So we can keep an eye out for that as well, but it is a county driven project. So, but I hope that gives you some clarity.
Yes, that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you, Joanne. Any other questions?
So through you, Mayor Bridge, we do also have another resident.
Yeah, I just making sure Joanne's got our questions. Yeah,
Well,
okay.
thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. And we have, is it Heather?
Heather Ball-Smith. Yep.
Yes, please. Heather, would you come on board here?
So just give her a minute to get moved over as a panelist.
I don't see her as yet.
Not yet. Yeah, she's coming though.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Heather. You're
Just ask her
muted,
to
I think.
unmute.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My computer has been very glitchy tonight.
No problem.
We have the very odd property that is by the landfill site at the end of Norman Street behind the feed mill. And we are wondering how this rezoning is going to affect our property. With being rezoned all around us, we're currently an agricultural zoning, but it appears with this development, we will be surrounded by subdivision.
Okay. Jessica, do you want to take that? Go ahead.
Yep, so through you, Mr. Mayor. Heather's property does remain outside of the urban boundaries. So we have not, it was never brought in through OPA 117. She is correct in that the lands, the farm parcel, I guess to the west of her was brought in, and also a bit to the southwest along Jane and Elgin Street there have all been brought in to the urban boundary. So her property will remain an A-1 zoning. So that's the agricultural zoning. So in terms of how her property will be affected through this zoning, it won't. Just the adjacent properties to her are being rezoned. So there is, yes, potential for subdivisions to go in there. But in terms of the zoning application brought forward, the zoning has not changed on her property.
Okay. Is that understood then, Heather, like your zoning doesn't change?
The zoning doesn't change. Is it probable it will be changed in the future with being surrounded by subdivision? And also, second question, what are the plans for the landfill site?
I don't believe we have any current plans, but I can maybe get Derek to speak to that. And maybe Derek, I think this kind of falls along the line which you just spoke to the previous caller as well, that the county's doing the other official plan now. They're starting to work on that.
Certainly. So there is an identified buffer around the landfill site. So we have no plans to develop any of that. And from my earlier comment, through the comprehensive review, we will be looking at other lands outside the urban boundary because we have to start looking at land needs. But that is, again, a county driven project. And I really don't have an update or have identified any particular lands outside the current urban boundary that we would be looking at right at this point in time.
Okay, Heather?
So there are no plans then to develop the landfill site
We have
No.
no.
or to do anything with it at this point?
No.
Okay. Looking at the map, are there any plans for a road to connect these two proposed subject lands that are being rezoned?
So at this point in time, it's really too early to tell. We would more than likely address that at application stage, and we right now we're writing. This is just a zoning process right now, so we don't have any details of what this may or may not be at this point in time. But there's processes for each one of these parcels that if they come forward, and the town and the county both have planning processes that would look at all these things. And right now, we don't have anything before us to describe a road or what a road might look like in that parcel, I believe. Ashley, am I correct on that particular one?
I believe so. I did just want to mention too that the future development farm parcel that's being rezoned as such, if and when it gets developed, it would require another rezoning application. And at that point, you would be notified because you're within the required distance. So.
Any other questions, Norm?
Have you got another question, Heather? Sorry.
I'm just asking my husband if we had
No.
any other questions.
No problem.
The time frame for development on these two big properties that are being rezoned.
I would turn to Derek, but I don't believe there's any kind of proposal on any of them at this point in time.
No, and at this point, they're both being designated as future development. So prior
Yeah.
to any other development, they'd have to be rezoned and you'd be notified.
Yeah, there's another process before anything would get developed, Heather, which you would be notified on.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Annaline? Nope.
Sorry, through you, Chair Bridge, there is no one else that has been
Okay,
registered.
then I'll open it up to the council for questions. Okay. Not seeing anything. So at this point in time, I will state the following. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Council of the Town of Minto in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, you must make a written request to the clerk of the Town of Minto at 5941 Highway 89, Harrison, OG 1ZO, or by email at annaline@town.minto.on.ca. If there's no further comments, I will declare this public meeting closed. There we go. Thank you. I gotta get my notes out here now. Okay. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor McKenzie, that the committee of the whole convenes to the regular council. Anybody opposed? No, carried. Any notice of motion? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Gudson, the council of the town of Minto ratifies the motions made in the committee of the whole. Anybody opposed? Carried. Bylaws. Moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor Anderson, the bylaw number 2021-92 to provide the amendment of the municipal drain 24-2018 Town of Minto bylaw 2018-51 and for the collection of the amended assessments be approved and read for a second and third time and passed in open council and seal of the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Site plan. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Dirksen, that the bylaw number 2021-93 to authorize execution of site plan agreement with Palmerston Manufacturing and Division of Hammond Manufacturing Company Limited for the purpose of developing 215 Minto Road be read first, second, and third time and passed open council COC of the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Deputy Mayor Turton, bylaw number 2021-94 to authorize the execution of site plan agreement with Murray Weidman and Irene Weidman for the proposed development of 6478th line be read first, second, and third time, passed on council COC of the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor McKenzie, the bylaw number 2021-95 to confirm actions of the council of the corporation of Town of Minto respecting a meeting held December 7th, 2021 be read first, second, and third time and passed and open council COC of the corporation. Anybody opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Gunson. The council of the Town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. Just before I adjourn, I think good meeting, everybody, with a lot of exciting things happening on that meeting today, and appreciate everybody's commitment and comments. Anybody opposed to the adjournment? Passed. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.